Hello, Natural Start Alliance conference attendees, and welcome to our virtual session, Stronger Together, Cross-Sector Approaches to Scaling Outdoor Learning in Early Childhood, specifically looking at what's happening in the state of Michigan and through our work with the Michigan Early Childhood Outdoors Hub. My name is Caleb Carlton. I'm the CEO of the Great Lakes Stewardship Initiative, and I'll be kicking us off. So overall, we want to give you an opportunity to explore the history, the current work, and the work that we envision going forward in the state of Michigan around our statewide efforts to advance outdoor and nature-based early childhood learning in all parts of the state. And specifically, we want to dig into some of the challenges that we've faced historically and in the recent past and that we're still working through, including a lack of formal licensing for programs and approaches to ONB here in Michigan, as well as gaps in research and linkages to a statewide network of practitioners and stakeholders to help make the case and solidify the support system in our state to increase access to outdoor and nature-based programming. And we want to highlight and share insights from some of the opportunities that have been generated in coming together as statewide stakeholders and sustaining collaboration, deepening collaboration, and envisioning something ambitious for our state in this space. And so we'll explore collaborative strategies that have emerged from that work and how we are bringing multiple stakeholders to the table and giving the space for shared leadership in this work, and also our approaches to centering equity in the work, really envisioning what capacity, what structure, what representation, what partnerships do we need to generate and sustain to ensure that every childhood in Michigan has the right to access nature and connect with nature and be outdoors throughout early childhood and specifically in early childhood education programming. So here we go. The expected outcomes from our session today, we want you as the audience to gain insights from our journey here in Michigan and strategies for change that you may be able to apply in your context, in your community, in your region, in your state. We want to identify actionable steps to advance outdoor and nature-based learning. So we want to give you some concrete stepping stones from our work here in Michigan that can help you advance the work wherever you're inputting, whether that's at the local or the state level. And we want to offer opportunities for discussion and reflection and collaborative generation of new ideas in problem solving as we think about opportunities for partnerships and approaching and addressing challenges that are common across this work, wherever you may be. All right, so section 1, welcome and framing. That's what we're doing right now. And once we get through that and we give you a chance to reflect on where you're at in the progress towards outdoor and nature-based learning in your community, in your region, in your state, we're going to give you a deeper look at what's been happening in Michigan, where our journey has taken us, where we envision heading in this work at the statewide level here in Michigan through the MiECO hub. And then we want to dive deeper into implementation strategies. What have we collectively and individually done to get Michigan to a place where it's at right now with some exciting new licensing rules and opportunities for real growth at the state level for access to early childhood outdoor and nature-based learning. And then we want to talk more about centering equity, the work that we've done to date to bring a diverse representation of stakeholders across the state together in this work of the MiECO hub, but also, the challenges and barriers that remain for us to build true representation in our work and really build out an opportunity for true statewide capacity for every young person to access this kind of learning and programming in their community. And then we want to turn it back to you for some additional reflection and discussion, opportunities for you to think based on the context of Michigan about how you can generate cross-sector partnerships and collaborations to advance this work at the local, regional, and state level where you're at. And then we want to finish it off with a call to action and give you a framework for how you can move forward in your work and how you can call upon us to support you in your work. So presenting today, myself, Caleb, we have John Vincent, who's the Chief of Early Childhood Education at the Outdoor Discovery Center Network based out of Holland, Michigan. And we have Brooke Larm, who is an advisory leader for the Michigan Early Childhood Outdoors Hub and has done incredible work in a variety of capacities in early childhood and place-based education here in Michigan. So here's our opening reflection prompts. We have a link to a document here in the slide deck, which you should have access to, called Stronger Together Contribution Form. And once you have access to that, here are some prompts that we want you to think about and collectively offer some answers to. This will be a place where anyone who's viewing the session can offer their reflections, their ideas, their questions, and hopefully collectively we can generate some discussion over time and also connect with one another and support one another through this repository that will be developed here in this forum. So prompt number 1, where does your state or organization stand in the journey toward outdoor nature-based early learning? This again can be from the perspective of your organization at the local level, the work that you're doing, where you want to head, or if you want to think about it in a similar context to what we're presenting on today at the statewide level, where is your state at collectively in this work and where is it headed? What progress have you made thus far, again, locally or thinking about at the state level? And going along with the progress, what barriers and limitations to progress have you encountered? And then finally, what are your current goals or aspirations for this work? What do you envision hoping to achieve through your role, through your organization, through collectively your state, however you're approaching this work? So I'm going to hand it off to Brooke Larm to take us through section 2 now.
Hi, I'm Brooke. Section 2 is Understanding Michigan's Journey, Setting the Stage. To understand where MiECO is today, it helps to understand the path that brought us here, and it goes back further than you'd expect. So next slide. Pioneering programs, roots of a movement. So in 1982, Kalamazoo Nature Center launched Nature's Way Preschool, which is one of the nation's longest running environmental preschool programs. Then in 2007, Chippewa Nature Center launched their nature preschool with a single classroom, and it's expanded to now offering 3 classrooms with full and half-day programs. And in 2013, Outdoor Discovery Center, ODC, launched with Little Hawks Discovery Preschool in collaboration with Hamilton Public Schools and Ottawa ISD. They now operate 5 sites and 28 classrooms. So it's a pretty exciting effort there. And we'll get to hear from John in the session today and learn more about ODC. Next slide. So in 2019, at the Natural Start Conference, Nature-Based Early Learning Conference, we established an informal group called MITN, Michigan Teachers in Nature, as a regional network connecting educators, nature-based programs, advocates, with 2 key goals. We wanted to make it really simple. One is networking and the other advocacy. So for the networking goal, we had several key actions we took over the years. One is we facilitated a community forum composed of 114 members. We shared resources, troubleshooted challenges, celebrated successes through that forum. We also held 2 to 3 virtual gatherings over the years, particularly around the COVID-19 pandemic. And then following, we were able to host 2 in-person gatherings at 2 different sites of approximately 30 different educators. Next slide. Here you can see photos from the 2 different in-person gatherings, one at University of Michigan Towsley Children's House and the other at West Michigan Academy of Environmental Science. And these were really exciting opportunities coming out of the pandemic when people were feeling siloed in their work for us to connect, network, learn from each other, identify common challenges, share resources, and just see different sites. So it's a source of inspiration and connection during a time that was really needed. Next slide. And then our second goal was advocacy. We took several key actions over the course of about 5 years that MITN we were collaborating and working together to work towards establishing outdoor nature-based childcare licensing rules in our state, inspired by a lot of the work happening in Washington. And so from fall to 2023 through spring 2025, in collaboration with the NAAEE Natural Start Alliance and other providers, work to support our Childcare Licensing Bureau in rule development. And with ODC, we also work to support our Childcare Licensing Bureau in drafting childcare technical assistance, which provides guidance and support resources to help implement the rules. Next slide. So the landscape at the time while this was happening was pretty exciting in Michigan. We had several key reforms heading into the rule revision process. And in Michigan, every 5 years is a natural cycle of rule revision. And so we seized that opportunity to really advocate for outdoor nature-based rules during this cycle of review. And that saved us having to go through special legislative action and instead just provide input through that natural process. During this time, there was a big governance and structure reorganization. The licensing for regulations changed to a new department called MiLEAP. And this newly created Michigan Department of Lifelong Education, Advancement, and Potential, it's a mouthful, now houses our camp, our childcare licensing, as well as higher education. As well, during the same time, we had universal pre-K launch and enrollment expansion. So starting fall 2024, all Michigan families can now access free pre-K through the Great Start Readiness Program. And John's going to explain more about that in subsequent slides coming up. Regardless of income, families can qualify for this. Enrollment priority is given to those at or below 400% of the federal poverty level. GSRP is currently ranked #1 in the nation. It's a really exciting effort in our state. And all that to say, there's a lot of really exciting change, and with change comes opportunity. And so we really seized that to advocate for rules supportive of programs that are outdoors. All right, next slide. This is a celebratory moment. In May 2025, the childcare licensing rules were approved. Within the press release, there's a special announcement saying supporting innovation. The changes brought in access to high quality, innovative childcare options by establishing minimum standards for small capacity centers and outdoor nature-based programs. Developed with input from providers like us and stakeholders, these updates are designed to support flexible, creative approaches to early learning while maintaining safe and developmentally appropriate environments for children. And I mentioned the rules as well as the technical assistance. Both of those are in the resources section at the end, so you can take a look at those. The rules are embedded the outdoor nature-based rules are embedded within the entire document. So be warned of that as you're trying to locate them. And the technical assistance dig into providing implementation support. So this is really tremendous in our state. We're one of those leading states to make these strides. And it also means there's a lot of work ahead. So next slide. So section 3, we're going to dig into implementation strategies. So how do we get there? How do we make turn our vision into action in our state? So passing the rules was a milestone, but lots of work is needed ahead. But it's also important to look back and think about what actions we took that worked and expand upon those as we move forward. So the road to rule change advocacy actions, within those, we really worked to highlight the need with our Child Care Licensing Bureau. So Washington, again, referenced the work coming out of that state, as well as policy briefs, reports coming from NatStart Alliance, growth trends, all of that data we were working to share with our Child Care Licensing Bureau. We were working to tell the stories from the field of things working. So often you hear, you can't do that, that doesn't work. How can you do that safely? Well, we were showing and paving the way for it, showing how it can work. And we were able to point to other states where they were achieving success with passing rules and safely providing programs like this. Showing the way, demonstrating successful outcomes and best practices, again, pointing to other states, and maintaining presence. So showing up in spaces where decisions are made, where our voices can be heard. Both John and I have participated in Capital Days, early childhood advocacy days in our capital of Lansing. We showed up at stakeholder input sessions, our Child Care Licensing Bureau, as they were opening up the initial rule revision. They had stakeholder input sessions, and we showed up in those spaces and highlighting the need for rules supportive of outdoor programs, and that translated into additional opportunities for side conversations wholly focused on outdoor nature-based rules. Engaging in social media platforms, sharing the story everywhere. And so building relationships along the way and promoting localized successes across, again, social media. Next slide. The path to revision, supportive actions, was maintaining presence. So once we got going into the rule work deeper, our licensing bureau was asking to meet regularly with us. That provider input was critical to guiding what rules were needed, even just first wave rules, knowing there's more work to be done in subsequent years for more in-depth rules. But we wanted to start somewhere and at least take advantage of that cycle to start somewhere. Offering ongoing support, that question, how can I help, seems so simple, but it is critical and carries tremendous weight. We had to be adaptable. We even thinking of expecting rules to be approved right around the end of 2024, early 2025. Our state budget was held up and approval. And so the rules weren't actually approved until May 2025. And so recognizing there are larger forces beyond us that we had to take into consideration to work with our department, but remaining steady and supportive throughout the journey. And then providing training and technical assistance. Once the rules were approved right away, we knew that our licensing consultants needed support and education. And so ODC, John and myself and a fellow colleague went to Lansing and spent the day in working with our child care licensing, a consultant and division director, putting together draft technical assistance. And so, John, I like to say we just wiped our calendars and made it happen to show up there, because we recognize just the significance of being invited to show up there. And then also a colleague from ODC and myself later in the fall presented on nature-based curriculum to the entire Child Care Licensing Bureau, well over 200 people, and that was really well received. There were good questions. We definitely opened eyes, but the photos often tell the story. And so we had lots of great photos to show the magic and impacts of how it's worked and has worked. Again, we have trailblazing programs like ODC, Chippewa, in Kalamazoo who've been doing this for years. So it's not something new, it's something well established and highly valued. And the demand, right, is only growing. Next slide. So future forward, we recognize, again, there are gaps. Now that the rules were approved, the work is not done. These gaps are, we're working on. We've made some strides in some areas, and some we have much work to do. So these include strategies to expand diverse cross-sector stakeholders. We're doing a lot here, but there's lots of opportunity as well, especially as we start to explore funding and other partners to really expand access. Explicit equity centering approach to address systemic barriers. We're doing a lot of work on this right now. Data evaluation metrics and impact reporting. Again, this has just been providers telling stories, but a more formal approach to this is needed. Feedback mechanisms to improve initiatives. Storytelling to celebrate successes and highlight solutions, sustainability and funding and infrastructure, resource sharing infrastructure, which we're well establishing through our hub, which we'll show you a bit later. Comprehensive networking. We've had informal gatherings, but there's a lot of opportunity here and need and demand for professional learning and training, and a broader advocacy strategy across our state to really cement broad opportunity, knowing there's a lot of funding and support needed to continue to move this forward. Okay. I'm going to switch it over to John now. He's going to dive into the great work of GSRP in our state.
Thanks, Brooke. When we really look at kind of where Michigan is at and what we've been focused in on in the last couple of years and what we continue, it's really a kind of two main threads. It's all the work that we've done with licensing, which Brooke has kind of highlighted, but there's a lot of really great work that's done with our state-funded pre-K program, which is that Great Start Readiness program. And a lot of that, the thought and the intentionality behind it is whether it's at these Natural Start conferences or anytime you hear kind of just an update, there's a continual thread that access to nature-based programs remains limited, and we want to work towards that. And within Michigan, within that GSRP program, it provides free access for all 4-year-olds in the state, which is a huge benefit if we're looking at trying to overcome some obstacles and get all kids and families in Michigan access to nature. It's a great way to do it. And I know in Chippewa and here at ODC, we've been offering GSRP within our nature-based programs for over 10 years. And some of those efforts, there's been a lot of learning curves and steps and eventually successes with doing it. And through all that learning in the last 10 years, like I said, it's allowed for success. And so I think more recently, Michigan at the state level has looked at those kind of two examples of what's been working with from Chippewa and ODC with that partnership, and is kind of taking it more seriously or more intentionally to share out those successes statewide so that more kids can access it and find that success themselves. Next slide. So this is just kind of talks about some of those learning curves and steps that we've taken about that 10-year journey, about what we found success in so that we can share that out on a broader scale. How it's designed in Michigan is it's a state-funded program, and it is offered within that MiLEAP department. But it's really the intermediate school districts throughout the state that are the regulators on how the program is being implemented by providers. And so if we were to, in order to do nature-based within GSRP, we really needed the support of our local ISD to ensure that we're able to do it. And some of even the hiccups and doing the broader scale comes to different ISDs having different interpretations about what's possible within GSRP. And so since that we figured out with our local partner and same with Chippewa, it's kind of opening that door and that conversation, that thread to share out with the other ISDs about how it's possible and how you can regulate it within these programs that's still approved by the state. So one of the biggest learning curves, looking back to 10 years ago, was around curriculum. Being a nature-based program, following emergent curriculum is a value that we have and was kind of a non-negotiable. We want to follow the kids' interest. We want the curriculum to be centered around the natural world. We want those experiences for our kids. And a non-negotiable for the state was that we had to follow a state-approved curriculum, such as creative curriculum or high scope. So we had to have a lot of conversations about how those two can live together. And for us, it's within that creative curriculum, there is that component of developing your own lesson plans and your own units of study. And so we've leaned on that and eventually wrote all of our own units of study that do follow that natural world that is child-led. It's something they're interested in. And it still follows all the components that you can find, all the same structure within creative curriculum. And so that's been a huge success and is something that probably the most talked about when there's other providers and other ISDs interested in figuring out how to do it. The curriculum conversation is the one that comes up the most on how to solve it. Another thing that we've experienced that we found a lot of benefits with is around professional development. So again, to operate GSRP, that intermediate school district has to implement a professional development plan for all the educators in their region. And so for a while we were attending for them, it logistically makes sense to host one professional development and have all the local providers come in and hear what that content is. And when we were doing that, often our teachers would be sitting through a training that didn't feel like it was helpful to them. They couldn't see how that training could apply in their setting. And they would get stuck on different things because it wasn't about the natural world. It was in a different environment. It was all within the classroom, and we want to be outside of those four walls as much as possible. So we continue to have conversations and collaboration, and we're thankful that RISD allowed us to kind of have a customized approach to professional development. And it often be we're doing the same content. So literacy essentials is an example. They wanted everyone in their region to go through the literacy essentials training. We said, yes, let's do it, but let's have more conversations on it. So we would meet with their trainer. They would talk about the different ways of promoting literacy in the classrooms that still follow the essentials within the training. And then our team could work on, okay, let's talk about finding literacy artifacts in nature or in outdoor settings. So this is when we're talking about field guides can promote literacy and can be an artifact. Mud kitchen recipes can be one. And then the training that our teachers would receive was still hitting that literacy essentials component, but it was in a setting and an environment in the language that's going to be more helpful to them. So that's been a huge success. And the last bullet point is just kind of highlights what the success we found throughout all of it is just that collaboration. We have our values and the GSRP has their kind of non-negotiables, but we both clearly agree that we want to provide what's best for kids. And so that's our North Star. And we're both willing to kind of push and pull to make sure that is lived out. And so as new things come up, which they do on an ongoing basis, it's having that collaboration, but we both are committed to doing what's best for kids. And so that's where we can find alignment. Next slide, Caleb. So then it's taking kind of the last 10 years of success that a few of our programs have found and how can we expand this work statewide? And this is work that's been done and continues to go on. So one thing that happened 2 years ago is the Great Start Readiness Program at GSRP, they host an annual convening in which all those ISD individuals that are regulating and supporting GSRP throughout all the providers attends. And we were asked, ODC was asked with our ISD, so we had 2 people from our team and 2 people from the ISD to come talk about that partnership, about the successes, about the curriculum, about the professional development, about assessments, all of that to anyone that was at that training could attend. It was kind of a breakout session, but if an ISD was interested, they could attend. And we probably had about 60 people in that room listening about that partnership. Another thing that we found really helpful is GSRP kind of informally dedicated an individual to really be assigned to supporting this work. So it's one of the GSRP consultants, and she's attended all of these monthly collaboration meetings that we've had, and it's really been a voice for GSRP, has really been a support with our success with the ISD to share it out with other ISDs that, yes, it's possible to do it. This is what it can look like. You need to have those conversations, that collaboration around it, and that's been extremely helpful. Another thing that we've done that's been helpful for the expansion is we at ODC host a nature-based pre-K certification. It's a week-long training program in the summer. And we've had GSRP staff attend that to get kind of immersed in what is nature-based so that they can better support programs in doing it. And the final kind of big one that I feel like is really successful is we were kind of asked just to write down what I've kind of shared in the last those 10 years of experiences, the successes, into a guidance document. And so I opened up a Google document and shared it out with members of my team, shared it out with our local ISD, and we wrote a long kind of version of how this can be successful. We handed it over to GSRP. They shortened it because I'm a wordy person and I like to go in details, and they want to keep it more high level, which is great. And it was just this past winter recently published and is now part of that GSRP implementation manual. So now anyone across the state can access and start that conversation. And that guidance document isn't supposed to be the perfect kind of A to Z recipe, but it opens up that door for that conversation. And if need be, they can reach out to our organization, they could reach out to other organizations, they could reach out to anyone within the GSRP, and they can start to have that conversation about how we can have nature-based exist with a publicly funded pre-K program, which is a huge success for our state.
All right, so now that you've heard about some of the implementation strategies and successes at the local and regional level here in Michigan, as well as the work that Brooke and John and so many others have done to guide and support the development of the outdoor and nature-based licensing rules that are new here in Michigan, and all of that really setting the stage for Michigan to grow its capacity to support early childhood outdoor nature-based learning programs all throughout the state. We want to give you a little bit of background regarding how the MiECO Hub has developed, how we've brought stakeholders to the table, and how we have started to build our core of sustained capacity and network to do this work going forward here in Michigan. So the Great Lakes Stewardship Initiative, which I represent, is an organization that has a statewide and a region-wide, Great Lakes region-wide footprint with a mission to increase access and opportunities for youth to be stewards of their environment through education opportunities, what we call place-based stewardship education. And so we have a network of hubs, teams all throughout the state that have a regional service footprint, and they build robust school community partnerships and kind of build the ecosystem and the opportunities for educators and community partners, organizations, municipalities to find their role and their relationships with one another in creating those opportunities for youth to move beyond the classroom and connect their learning to the local environment, to the local community, and deepen their sense of place and their sense of possibility and purpose in connecting to and taking care of and shaping the future of that place in that environment. So with that said, GLSI led an effort in partnership with the Children in Nature Coalition and with funding from the Kresge Foundation to launch and develop the Michigan Children in Nature Coalition here in Michigan. And that work was big and broad, meant to bring together stakeholders from all different contexts throughout the state who either directly offer programming or support the work to connect our youth here in the state to the outdoors and to nature, whether that's through recreation, whether that's through informal learning and community-based programs, or the formal learning environment, or some other form of helping to get kids outside and connecting to nature. So that work was meant to bring all of us together and think about what are our priorities for the state, where are our opportunities at, how can we collaborate and approach this work more comprehensively so that all young people in our state are having multiple opportunities and have multiple supports to get outdoors and connect to nature in all different contexts throughout youth. So as we dug into that work, one of our big events early on was to bring together those stakeholders from across the state for a summit in the summer of 2024. And during that event, we dug in and really developed collaboratively our priorities for the coalition. And here is a bit of a map that shows where our priorities ended up, with green schoolyards kind of being the keystone priority that connected out everything else that we wanted to do in the state, and all of the ways in which the stakeholders at the table could really support those priorities. And as you can see, early childhood is one of our priorities. And so that really helped set the stage for understanding that, yeah, there is statewide buy-in and interest and capacity to collaborate around building out a more robust infrastructure and partnerships and capacity overall to increase early childhood opportunities in the state of Michigan for connecting to nature, for being outside, for learning through the local environment. And so once it was clear that the coalition had an early childhood priority for the work collectively happening across the state, a team of us branched off to start to dig into and envision, what does that mean for Michigan? Where is the need? Where is the opportunity? And that's where the MiECO Hub concept has been developed by John and Brooke, myself, and our colleague Lisa, as well as our advisory group, which we'll share more about in just a moment. But we really saw the opportunity to build upon the licensing rules, build upon the incredible programs that already exist in Michigan, and create that hub, a virtual hub, a place where providers and community supporters and stakeholders and state representatives can all gather and exchange resources, come together for networking, clarify and further develop professional development opportunities for providers and site leaders across the state, and just have that central space, that connective tissue of leadership, of capacity, and of sharing that allows us to collectively build out opportunities for new sites, new programs to be developed throughout the state as we go. And our work was heavily informed and inspired by similar efforts and concepts already well underway and established in places like Maine and Minnesota. So this is not a novel concept. While it's new to the state of Michigan, we definitely want to give credit to the incredible work that's been happening in some of these other places that has really given a nice pathway for us to be able to envision doing something similar and informed by what's happening elsewhere across the country. So here is our initial purpose statement as we have developed the hub. The Michigan Early Childhood Outdoors Hub is dedicated to advancing outdoor and nature-based education across the state, specifically at the early childhood level, as our name suggests. And we're really trying to, as you see in our purpose statement here, approach this in a way that creates space and opportunities for all young people to have opportunities related to learning outside and connecting to their local environment at those earliest levels, and being able to do that in a variety of settings. So us building professional development opportunities, supports, resources, peer mentorship opportunities, program to program sharing that allows for providers and site leaders and other stakeholders to really gather relevant and meaningful resources that are informed by work happening in similar contexts and community settings to theirs. So to help inform that work, to help build out the hub and to shape direction and to bring resources to the table, we have developed a statewide advisory group that's representative of program sites, program leaders, state representatives, umbrella organizations like the Association for Nature Center Administrators, all bringing these folks to the table and meeting quarterly and helping them have an opportunity to really represent their perspective on this work, share the resources and opportunities that they have to help build out this work, and collectively inform where we go and how we build as we are still in the nascent stage, but really starting to concretely build things for the state. And so the virtual component of the hub has a footprint, a digital footprint now on GLSI's community platform called the Play Space. And we still have a lot of work to do to build out the hub and to generate and curate resources, but it really is a space that's meant to fulfill the need for networking, for finding the right partners and mentors to help learn from and support the work happening all across the state, to share core resources, to host and coordinate professional development opportunities, and then just to be that overall connective tissue for all of the folks that are connected to outdoor nature-based early childhood learning in the state of Michigan.
Okay. Section 4, the heart of our mission. Everything we've described so far is focused on and been shaped by our core conviction that all children deserve access. It's their right to outdoor nature-based learning in our state and beyond. And so this requires naming and actively working against the systems that currently limit access. And so this is the heart of our work, is the equity, centering equity at every step. Next slide. So the progress we've made so far, we've recognized that individual providers, we've experienced this, we've been in this, but across our state, individual providers have limited influence on policy, operating in silos. We've been able to connect through Mitten to make some progress, but that has its limits. There's the isolation, difficulty shifting, systemic inequities without a really collaborative, dedicated approach that's intentional. And the work is unsustainable, dependent on individual champions. It's the risk of burnout. And so we want to move towards collective impact, right? An approach that is more formalized and where we can move ourselves forward in a really big way. And so this is where our launch of MiECO is taking us to this next step. We have a shared vision, which we've been co-creating through our MiECO advisory group, and inviting in community voice through feedback and input through our initial sessions, which we'll continue to work towards. Our coalition is diverse. We're composed of providers. We have licensing represented, GSRP representation, Natural Start, INCA, Samara Early Learning, and we're growing. We're working to grow and expand our coalition group, bringing in, we have opportunities around geographic representation that we want to work to increase and beyond. Distributed leadership, we have an advisory group, regional hubs, and working towards peer mentorship. Shared infrastructure. The play space is a more formal than a Facebook group, which we've had in the past, a more formal platform that we need to work to build out and draw people in and get them comfortable using it. Curating resources. We have some initial resources up, but we're working to figure out what belongs there, what's needed, and creating resources where there are gaps. And then Coordinated PD. We understand in our state we need more coordinated professional development around risk. A lot of the standards focus on risk management and safety. So that is an area we have highlighted as a priority. And fundraising is another area. Funding is needed to move forward. Strategic coordination, aligned advocacy, coordinated professional learning, and then collaborative problem solving. And lastly, mutual accountability. Mentioned we don't really have set metrics in place to show progress. So working on more formalized community feedback mechanisms, public reporting, and tracking demographics in terms of participation. So that allows us to see who we're serving and who we might be missing. And so you can see below. Oh yeah, chime in, John.
Yeah, well, you're about to say what I was about to say too, but you can see below kind of that timeline of different things. And I just think it's helpful to call out, like, I'm assuming that many people listening to this kind of are stuck feeling like an isolated provider. And it wasn't too long ago that, at least from my timeline on there, I felt kind of like an isolated provider as well, and just started to go to different things and hear different things and be connected with people. That's when I got connected with Brooke. And then we kind of heard about different circles of connected advocates, and we heard about a lot of different people and organizations or groups or committees or just random virtual calls all throughout the state, kind of all working at the same thing, but just not connected as a united front, maybe connected in a couple different silos. We kind of felt we were in that bubble, and we started trying to group everyone together and become a connected advocate. Once we did that, we started becoming a little bit more organized and start dreaming up what that formal infrastructure could be. And that's really about the space that we're in Michigan, is we're kind of at the infancy or maybe even the toddler level of a formal infrastructure right now, but still see a lot of progress to be made.
Yeah, and John and I have talked about how in some cases going off and working in different circles has its benefits, because it allows us to kind of divide out shared workload, broadening our reach, but then coming together and drawing everyone together through different iterations is really valuable and critical as well. So then we're all aligned in what we're working towards, and it allows us to move further together. And yeah, it was very much grassroots in those early. We're shifting from grassroots, and grassroots is good. There's nothing wrong with grassroots, but at some point, again, with the equity goals in mind and just such great demand and need, we need something more than grassroots to move us forward. All right, next slide. So our goals, right, moving forward, we want all Michigan children to experience outdoor nature-based learning in environments and that reflect and honor their communities. So our current reality is access is unevenly distributed across race, income, geography. The Upper Peninsula of Michigan is very isolated. It's very remote. So there's not a lot of opportunity for educators to connect in that area. And so virtual forums and finding creative ways to connect different providers in places such as that is on our radar. Ability as well is really a priority area, and that's something we're looking at ways to, especially thinking about exclusion policies and how we can make sure all families and children feel a sense of belonging. And we know that it's possible, and finding creative stories of people who have figured it out, lifting those up, and then working to support educators and programs and creating policies that ensure of that. Historical exclusion from nature spaces continues to impact opportunities, and marginalized communities are furthest from access. So for us, targeted solutions, we're looking at children, regardless of race, income, geography, or ability, need creative solutions. Families, we want them to feel welcome to participate without barriers. Family engagement and voice are a critical component. Our MiECO's first focused on educators, but families are in tandem with that. So supporting educators and bringing families into the conversation to shape the community is critical. Educators, we want a highly supported, skill diverse workforce. The new outdoor nature-based rules speak to the qualifications needed for outdoor educators. And so we want to make sure that there are opportunities, both in-person, virtual, that can support educators in safely taking kids outside. And then equal access to resources, urban and rural, including home-based. Our state's doing a lot of work now piloting different supports and through the Child Care Licensing Bureau to support home-based programs. So our state wants to see a really diverse offerings to meet families where they are. And that means lots of different program models out there. All right. John, anything else to add to that? No. Okay. All right, next slide. So building equity into MiECO's structure, what we want and need to grow. So working at 3 levels of change. This starts with thinking about mental models. So shifting mindsets. This one's important. I'm seeing this coming up in different forums and spaces where thinking about nature-based learning is a privilege, but in fact, it's a right for all children. And that's a really important shift I think we need to make as a field. And that means, again, a lot of that work comes around community building and working with families. And again, meeting them where they are. And so it's, again, nature-based learning is a right, not just a privilege, and it belongs to all children and all communities. And those experience barriers are experts in solutions. And so often we can find ourselves rigid, and it is challenging thinking of meeting the day-to-day, the staffing challenges that come up, and all of the administrative challenges. But we do have to make sure we're prioritizing access and that sense of belonging as we go through those day-to-day decisions. The relationships empower who leads and decides. It's important in our minds, right, in to position educators of color, Indigenous leaders, disability advocates, and to decision-making roles. And that takes time, it takes relationship building, it takes developing trust. And so this isn't something that is accomplished overnight. It's a long road, but it's worth the effort. And then once we draw people in, we need to figure out ways to compensate participation to remove those economic barriers to leadership. And then listening and acting with community. So regular feedback loops, co-designing solutions, co-designing strategies, co-designing program models. It's a lot of co-design, co-constructing. And again, that takes time, but it's time that is critical, and we want to build that in at the very foundation. Structures and systems, what we're building, increasing representation across our advisory group, the participants that join our meetings, that jump in, our partners, expanding access across all the different areas, and then again, defining accountability, as we referenced earlier. All of these are structural to again, before we think about long-term vision, big strategies, it's starting here with equity and then moving out of this to expand. All right. Discussion prompts, section 5. This is where we invite you to revisit the Google form to contribute and co-create. To guide the future, we're curious to hear what you're thinking, what you've gained from this, the challenges you're facing, and hopefully your mind is spinning about ways and people you could partner with and step forward to expand work in your state. Next slide. So there is the Stronger Together contribution form to respond to the following. We have 2 areas of prompts, one focused on cross-sector partnerships and the other identifying and overcoming barriers. So you can pause this presentation right now and take a few minutes to yourself to answer these questions. What existing partnerships can you leverage in your state? What new collaborations could be developed to advance outdoor learning? What challenges are you currently facing in implementing outdoor nature-based education? You can go back to that slide where we identified the different gaps that we've experienced or that we're thinking about to see if that sparks you in thinking about ways that you've made a lot of progress. So it's always important to celebrate the journey to date, and then to think about action steps you can take to move forward. And then how might you overcome these barriers to achieve your goals through cross-sector partnerships and collective action. And then you can also locate the responses in the session to learn from and with other participants. All right, so closing and call to action. Key takeaways, we'll breeze through collective action, of course, engaging with diverse partners, sharing resources, best practices. Equity as foundation. We've mentioned this in many different areas of the session, but diverse representation is key. It's critical to address systemic barriers and strengthen efforts. Equity must be core. Actionable strategies. So again, finding and leveraging partners in your state. Relationships are everything here. Sharing the work happening, whether it's your own work or others' work, to anyone who will listen. And then collaborating to overcome challenges. Call to action. So we invite you to reflect and engage. Take time to reflect on insights shared through the session. Find and think about 1 to 2 stakeholders that you could begin discussing opportunities with. Set goals, specific, actionable, inclusive, equitable goals to advance nature-based learning in your context. And then stay connected. Join networks and forums. Natural Start Alliance has a policy group that has been a great source of support and inspiration for me, as well as a regional network group. Lots of different workshops and opportunities to engage beyond the conference. EE orgs, providers, regional networks, share progress and seek support from peers. Again, John knows he can text me anytime. Vice versa. So finding others doing the similar work in your state and providing that reciprocal support is really critical to feel making great strides. And then next slide. Here are references and resources. As mentioned, the childcare licensing rules, technical assistance. You can learn more about MiECO, a Great Lakes Stewardship Initiative, by jumping on the website there, and then some resources to support advocacy and coalition building. There's our contact information if you'd like to reach out to any of us. Lisa wasn't with us today, but she is with Great Lakes Stewardship Initiative and is a great thought partner when it comes to all things evaluation and Great Lakes Stewardship Initiative. And thank you so much. Thank you to Natural Star Alliance for giving us this opportunity to present, and extend my gratitude to John and Caleb for being incredible partners in this work. So thanks for joining our session today.